and everything's going to go fast tonight, and I mean it this time because it's Christmas fucking Eve tomorrow, and I am not editing a podcast or two all goddamn day long.
I think that's exactly what you're doing. No. If you do, if the last half hour is any indication,
this is why I get it out of the way here, so I don't have to edit any of this. This is just, I just highlight all of this and snuff it off towards the end of the collection.
Start then.
Sneak 30 seconds out of it to use at the start. Here we are, Abe, Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports and a cold winter's night visit from the College Football Playoff Committee. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and each first-round game had been a massive blowout. The losers left shamed. Signetti said, "Google me," but now if you do, you'll find that Notre Dame made his team look like poo. SMU's QB threw 3 terrible picks. Penn State might still suck, but the Mustangs ain't shit. And Dabo went to Texas, outmanned by Coach Sark. "Let's get our shit pushed in," Dabo said on a lark. Clemson never stood a chance from the start, a rout, but at least we kept those 3-loss SEC teams out. Away to Ohio, hoping for one good game. But Nico sucked too. Rocky Top North? Super lame. Yet it was fun to see the playoff get started, even if half the teams played full-on retarded. The setting on campus? Now that was perfection. Away from the bowls. That's the right direction. But it's really quite clear we need smarter seating, or ratings will show that interest is fleeting. Because over all else, this is just a TV show. Important that the numbers in the demo grow. Now Penn State, now Texas, now Our Lady and the Bucks. Meet Boise, the Sun Devils, the Dogs, and the Ducks. The quarterfinals begin on New Year's Eve. Does the playoff have one decent game up its sleeve? We'll find out in time. But now it's nearly Christmas. We've a brief respite from our college playoff mistress. So turn off the TV, the first and the second. Leave the phone on the charger, though it may beckon. You'll remember much better this beautiful day, with all the screens darkened. It's the truth, I say. The kids are another year older, nearly grown. It won't be long now before they're off on their own. So hold tight to what matters. Ignore all the noise. On this greatest of holidays, for all us goys. There's truly no better time in all of the year to jealously keep your loved ones extra near. So from Cast Iron Balls, every sports fan's delight. Merry Christmas to all! And to all, a good night. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here, too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
That was nearly perfect.
That was nearly perfect. Ah, fuck. Tonight is Monday, December 23rd, 2024, Christmas Eve. What did I miss, Lori? Where was the...
I'd have to see it written to show you, but let's move along. No, don't show me.
It wasn't 56 lines, which is how long...
there was a bit of meter off
Nicholas.
Somewhere, but I don't want to get in. We can
Here,
workshop it for next year.
If you go and you look at the original 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, officially entitled A Visit from St. Nicholas, you'll find that the meter ain't fucking perfect in that one either. You got to do some gymnastics there to make it work. Anyway, December 23rd. Abe, you have a good weekend?
Yeah, lots of football watching, both on Saturday and Sunday, but quiet otherwise.
Yeah, not a great batch of football games that we watched. We're going to go fast because it is Christmas Eve, which means I have to put these episodes together on Christmas Eve itself. So let's get right.
I think the best way to do that is for you to stop talking.
Right into the games. We can start with the Friday night game, which involved Indiana at Notre Dame.
Was that the closest game as it turns out?
No, the Clemson one.
Well, this was a 10-point game, so yeah, by the scoreboard, this was the closest game, but not a great game. 27-17 was the final. It was not that close. Indiana scores 14 points in the fourth quarter to make it seem close. This was basically it was all but a 27-3 game.
Yeah.
Not a good game, and a game that started incredibly ugly. Like 4 minutes before Notre Dame breaks off that 98-yard touchdown run, we have an opening 3-and-out That includes a loss of 3 yards on the opening play of the game, and then incomplete punt. Notre Dame throws a pick. Indiana turns around and throws a pick.
This is not how you do fast shows.
To get into this game, you must acknowledge that though Notre Dame ends up dominating, it's not like they looked awesome right away. They needed that kick in the ass, that 98-yard. I mean, it sounds silly to say. I think that play ends with like 10 minutes and 57 seconds to go in the first quarter. But it took a while to get there in terms of like real life time. It's only 4 minutes on the clock, but it was a drag to get there. And then, he breaks a 98-yard touchdown run, and Notre Dame never really looks back. And Notre Dame is who Georgia's opponent will be in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day. Anything to worry about? I'm not too worried about.
The running quarterback is what I'm worried about. The healthy quarterback of theirs that runs that we haven't been able to stop all year.
Fucking
That's
Riley
what I'm
Leonard,
worried about.
Duke superstar and transfer. Riley Leonard is who
I'm
we're really
worried
worried
about the running quarterback who seems very good at running all of a sudden. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
But
a concern.
also, I don't care. We won the SEC, whatever.
You know, on that game, the Indiana game, it felt like Indiana was like overly conservative for a team that was down. Like there would be moments where it's
cautious.
Like,
Super
why not
cautious
just go
for
for it?
a team that was like an historically awesome offense through much of the season.
It's like if you had to go down, like just go for a fourth and whatever, like on the other side of the field, just go for it. Like if it fails, at least you're trying. It just seems weird that you would be so timid to like do something. Like were they just happy just to make it to the playoffs?
They punted down
Maybe
17 points at the start of the fourth quarter, I think. Right?
I think that's what I'm thinking. I remember I was like, "What are you doing? Why not just go for it?" I mean, you're down.
I think they were on the plus side of the field, down 17, with less than a quarter to go, and Cignetti decides to punt. It's like, what in the world are you just trying to look good for the final rankings of the season or something? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Go win a fucking football game.
I wonder maybe, he's there on the field, early on, he's like, we don't have it. Like, let's just try to salvage like a respectable loss, but we don't have it. We can't beat this team.
What I like about this result is that I think Notre Dame gets super full of themselves after this game.
I think all of you can say the same for all of these teams.
All of these home teams, holy shit, what a confidence booster weekend.
Yeah, but I think Notre Dame is obviously the better team here, and the outcome is obviously correct. We watched a handful of NotreAme games. And we'll talk about the Notre Dame versus Georgia matchup when we reconvene next week, I'm sure, ahead of this game actually happening. But as of right now, I was not surprised to see that when this game opened with Notre Dame as a 1.5 favorite, it was bet immediately 3 points in the other direction, where now Georgia is a 1.5 favorite, last I saw. Speaking of getting off to an ugly start and just not having it, Penn State against SMU was real rough. And this is another one. This is an even greater example of the home team probably walking away thinking, oh, we're fucking world beaters. Nobody can beat us. The reality of the situation is the SMU quarterback, Kevin Jennings or something, I think is his name. He was like personally plus 21 points for Penn State in the first quarter of this game. Like the SMU quarterback basically showed up and gifted 21 points to. I
mean, he had 2 picks returned for a touchdown, like in pretty quick succession. Like,
in the first quarter, throws 2 pick sixes and bad pick sixes.
Yes, yeah.
But it wasn't even that one. The pick sixes are whatever, but they get the ball. They get the ball after Penn State goes out.
They go for it, like 4 and out, wasn't it? They went on their own 19. Was that the possession where Franklin?
Right, but the first possession of the game is Penn State gets the ball and goes 4 and out. Okay. They have to punt, and then SMU on downs turns the ball over because they go for it on 4th and 1 at Penn State's about the 20, I think, and Jennings has the first down. The play is a designed rollout, I think, and he's rolling out to the side. And if he just takes off for the sideline, he has the first down and more, probably an 8 or 10 yard gain, and they're probably first and goal at the very worst. Instead, he throws a little bit back across his body, and it goes even slightly. It's a weak pass, a little bit too far across his body, and the receiver, who is open enough in the end zone, fails to secure the catch. Not a great throw. Maybe should have been caught. But that right there, instead of getting yourself first and goal, with a chance to take a lead, instead you're just turning the ball over. And then Penn State turns around and punts again. And then on the next possession, he throws his first taint of the day. After that, Penn State turned the ball over on downs and then got another taint. And then Penn State turned the ball over on downs again. And then Jennings threw another interception. Yeah. And then finally, the Penn State offense scores a touchdown of their own. All 21 points in that first quarter on turnovers. And then if you include the fact that the next possession, SMU turns the ball over on downs, then Penn State, that's another score on a turnover of sorts. It was just done by this SMU offense, handing all of these points, 28-0 at the half, and not much of a competition in the second half either.
It's remarkable that, we're going to talk about Ohio State's performance in a bit, but SMU started very slowly just 3 weeks ago, and you think they would have all this time to clean up that start of game situation, but it just kind of fell apart almost immediately. And their quarterback seemed like he was shell shocked, he was he just kind of rattled. I don't know if it was the audience, the crowd was throwing him off. I don't know if it was a cold, but he just seemed not into it.
The crowd, the atmosphere at both of those games that we've talked about so far was spectacular.
Yes, yeah.
Notre Dame was awesome at night. Penn State, the whiteout at noon was awesome as well. Nothing to complain about in terms of that stuff. You wish the matchups were better, though. You wish that it was a bit more competitive.
But that was the saving grace this week. I saw some people complaining online because it wasn't very competitive.
Oh, the people were complaining.
But I mean, it was all chalk, right? The worst thing you can say is not surprising. But the atmosphere is worth it to keep the format that we have. It was a good. Again, it would have been better if the matchups were better, especially that Tennessee game. I don't know what happened with Tennessee, but it would have been something if we had at least one good game, maybe one upset. It would have been a perfect kind of first playoffs. But so far,
I don't know what people expect to happen when you do a tournament. When you have good teams.
We'll get to big picture in a minute. Let's finish running through the games. Clemson at Texas, another one that starts off. This one at least started off kind of close. Clemson, in fact, takes a lead. These teams have basically identical back-to-back drives to open this game. Clemson has a 12-play, over 6-minute drive to score a touchdown, and then Texas turns around and goes for more than 6 minutes, 12 plays, and scores a touchdown. So it's a good start in that first quarter, and then in the second quarter, things just kind of start to fall apart for Clemson, and it is 28-10 at the half. And I think at one point in the fourth quarter, Cade Klubnik plays a little bit of hero ball, and they get within one score. So we get something approaching a little bit of drama at the end of this game, but it never really felt like it was going to be the outcome didn't really feel much in question here, even if it was eventually a one-score game in the fourth quarter.
And Texas ran it for almost 300 yards, right? This was the Clemson defense, for whatever reason, could not stop this Texas rushing attack. And it's kind of hard to win a game without being able to do that. I mean, almost 300, the 292 I'm seeing here. 292 yards rushing.
Right. Two players, Jaden Blue and Quintravion Wisner, that's number 26 for Texas. 14 and 15 carries apiece, one for 146 yards, one for 102, and 2 touchdowns each. That is quite effective and shows just how dominant Texas was up front. And it's funny to note that given how thoroughly Georgia was able to dominate Texas on that same line in both of the games that we've played against them. Clemson certainly could not. Clemson threw the ball. Klubnik had a good game. He threw 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, and just 1 pick. But they couldn't get anything going on the ground. And not a great game either. Moving us to Ohio State, Tennessee, which was just hideous, basically from start to finish. And Ohio State just looked fairly awesome, and Tennessee looked completely overmatched in much the same way on both sides of the line. They looked overmatched. I thought Tennessee was probably worse than all 3 of the SEC 3-loss teams. and that their schedule just happened to work out to where they ended up with just the 2 losses. But I would have put, in terms of, I know you can't do it. You can't take a 2-loss team and put them behind the 3 loss. Now that we have this 12-team playoff, the eye test matters a little bit less than it would have in years past. But Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama were all better than Tennessee this season. I don't think there's much doubt about that. I don't care about what happened on the field with Alabama. Sometimes strange results happened.
Right.
But yeah, Tennessee just looked severely outclassed against Ohio State here, which was too bad.
I mean, a defeat would have made sense. Like, it's not like Ohio State is a terrible team, but just the way that they beat Tennessee was surprising. Like, it was like total domination. Like Tennessee could not do anything.
So to me, it's not surprising, except for how they looked against Michigan, right? Like, because it was obvious to me that Ohio State is one of the 2 best or 3 best teams in the country this season, based on what I've seen them do, with the exception of that Michigan game. And it was equally clear to me that Tennessee was basically a middling SEC team. They were not despite making the playoff, they were not a top tier SEC team this season. And so, though Tennessee was the third, according to the way that the schedule shook out, the 3rd best team in the SEC, and Ohio State was the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, according to the way the schedule shook out, I don't think that was actually, they were not actually correct dance partners in terms of if you were to line up one conference against the other here. Not that any of that fucking bullshit matters. Like, it's good. Ohio State was the better team. They were the higher seed, so they were the home team, and then they proved that they were the better team on the field. To get to the bigger picture stuff, what did we learn about this system in its first season, in these first 4 games?
Better teams are better than not as good teams.
Right, and I think that's true through at least this first round. We'll see if there will be some upsets next round, but the margins, it would have been better, at least for the product. I mean, I was actually going to come here and complain about the grubby and greedy NFL for scheduling NFL games on the first Saturday of this college playoff format. Just clear the way. But then I changed the channel to the NFL.
At least you had something to flip over to and see what was going on when we were watching these garbage
I hope it doesn't get
games.
confused. The higher seeded team is not necessarily the higher ranked team in this next round.
Right. Yeah, I guess
so. That's important because the higher ranked teams are probably going to still win more.
Right. As far as just looking at the matchups, you're going to have Penn State against Boise. Like, there's no reason to expect, and Penn State's going to be a double-digit favorite in that game.
Yeah, they're double digit. They're 10.5 right now, and
right.
Texas 14.
And that's technically Penn State. That's a 6 against Boise, the number 3, which is ridiculous. Right. That's not how that should be. Boise clearly should have played SMU in the first round.
Right.
But wait, I'm confused though, because in the basketball tournament, the 1 seed plays the 16 seed.
Yeah.
The point is to get to the eventual best 2 teams.
The seeding is a reward for the idea.
I get that. I know.
That.
I'm just saying I don't understand what people are upset about or surprised by.
So they're upset because they thought that they had a misconception of what the playoff was supposed to do, or maybe they incepted a misconception into themselves. But this idea that the playoff was somehow going to create a whole slew of highly competitive games and was going to give everyone an equal shot at winning a national title, whereas in years past they didn't have that path, that's a misunderstanding of what's actually happening here. What's happening here is we are paying lip service to something that college football people have complained about for years, which is that it's not fair that these crappy teams don't get a chance to play for a national title, and that they should have to prove it on the field. And what was obvious was that the elite teams in college football are almost always going to prove it on the field on any given day, right? Like, yes, a weird matchup could happen where a much lower ranked team is going to show up and beat a higher ranked team, not just in terms of the seeding in the tournament, but actually in terms of a ranking upset. Sure, that happens. Matchups are fucking weird like that. But overwhelmingly, the teams with the most talent are going to beat the teams with less talent, especially if, like, you look at Arizona State. What does Arizona State do well? They run the ball, right, with Cam Scadaboo, right? They're going to rely on grown man football. Bad news if they're relying on grown man football against a Texas team that is full of much bigger grown men playing much the same style of football, right? Like, you can do that in a league that doesn't have as much size or talent as you do when you're Arizona State and you're in the Big 12. When you come up against someone who plays football a lot like you do, but are way better because they're bigger and stronger, you're going to find yourself in some trouble. And that's what Boise State is going to run into in this quarterfinal round, and that's what Arizona State is going to run into in this quarterfinal round.
I think it's funny that people are so upset and surprised.
I wonder if people are thinking like this is like March Madness, like where random things can happen because there are just so many teams. Like, you can have a weird situation like that. And also, the last time you had a quote-unquote lesser team beating a better team on paper, or at least the one that I'm thinking of, is that Boise-Oklahoma game from like 17 years ago, or however long it's been, where they did that weird trickery and they ended up winning at the end. Like, I think people are like hoping for situations like that, like the scrappy team that no one thinks highly of beating like a dominant blue blood team, but that's going to be a rare occasion. The best thing to happen to the lesser teams and lesser programs is Tennessee also losing. Because if you had Indiana and SMU, I mean, Clemson didn't matter, but like those teams people are thinking like, you don't belong. And the same thing will happen next week with Arizona State and Boise State, like, you don't belong, right? So like,
not just Tennessee losing, but Tennessee getting their ass kicked.
Yeah. So basically, right. So it went from like SMU and Indiana don't belong to just like the lesser teams lost to the better teams, and that's how typically it goes. The next round we'll have that situation again, because now you have like Oregon and Ohio State rematch, and then Georgia, Notre Dame. I anticipate both of them are going to be close, right? So you're going to have good matchups there, but the other matchups may go sideways pretty quickly. Like if Arizona State...
And keep in mind, the good playoff game for the last few years was the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Most of those games were fucking blowouts.
Well, and also, I mean, look at Georgia, Ohio State. That turned out to be the two best teams. Right. That was the national championship.
What was that? Georgia,
TCU 63 to something or something?
Yeah, it was some ridiculous score, yeah.
So the Georgia Rose Bowl game against Oklahoma, that was an awesome game, right?
Yeah.
Georgia, but other than that, and Georgia, Ohio State, how many great playoff games has Georgia played in the Kirby era? It's not that many, right? Because there aren't that many.
Well, and it's not just how many has Georgia played in. It's been a classic.
Clemson was blowing teams out.
Problem.
Alabama will blow teams out. There aren't usually great games in these playoffs, even when it was just 4 teams competing for the national title. It's only going to get worse. Now they can mitigate this. They can make it better simply by doing the seeding in a more rational way. Instead of giving Arizona State and Boise State buys this first week, you simply seed based on national ranking rather than based on who wins your conference.
But how would that have looked?
Because then you're much more likely to get a competitive game between Clemson and Arizona State than you were going to get between Clemson and Texas.
But then you're going to get the blowout later on. If you have inferior teams involved, you're going to get blowouts.
At some point, yes. But the idea is to make sure that your best teams are playing later. So I think that it's obvious that Arizona State should have been playing in the first round against Clemson. And it's obviously not fair to me that this quarterfinal game is between Oregon and Ohio State. Like, that sucks. There's no reason for that. That sucks for both of those teams. Yeah. It sucks for the format as a whole. Like, that maybe should be the national title game if they were on opposite sides of the bracket. And unfortunately now we're going to get it in the round of 8.
But why is that unfortunate? I mean, aside from like
when it happens,
what it's called, like we got Georgia, Ohio State Peach Bowl. Like, the game happened. The game was awesome.
Yeah, and as a semifinal, it was great. It would have been better as a national title game. Like, there's no question about that.
But there's no way.
No, there's no way that you cannot guarantee it, but you can be better about guaranteeing that the matchups make more sense later on in the tournament by saying that, for example, Penn State should not be playing against SMU, but Boise State instead should be, right? Boise does not belong ranked ahead of a one-loss Penn State team. That's kind of silly based on the schedules that they play, or even just saying the leagues that they played in. I don't know. Like, to me, that is one very obvious and easy fix. And the second obvious and easy fix is that given how seemingly impactful having home field advantage was, and in all likelihood would be moving forward, get these quarterfinal games on campus. Give the teams that earned the bye something to really be rewarded for. And that is, how awesome would it be if Georgia was hosting Notre Dame this week?
That'd be great.
Instead of Notre Dame and Georgia playing in the fucking Sugar Bowl. Like, it would be really cool if these games were on campus instead of at the stupid bowl games.
Yeah, I wonder
save the bowl games for later. It's fine. Use the bowl games in the semis.
I think your first suggestion is an easy fix. I don't know about the second one with the money and the scheduling.
There's a lot of money.
If they're ever going to change that. I can't think of another team that benefited more from playing this round than Ohio State, because you were rewarded for being one of the four best by skipping this whole thing, right? So you go straight into the next round. You don't have to play, but Ohio State gets embarrassed by Michigan, and now they have this like perfect game, like in front of their crowd. They get their confidence back, and now they're in a much better position to face off against Oregon or whomever else they would have played. Had they just went straight from that defeat to Michigan to like a good team in the next round, so they didn't have this. If they had like Arizona State spot or some Boise, they would be like waiting a whole month to play again. This kind of worked out perfect for them, and in fact, they're the early favorites against the team that they lost to the first time. Right,
they would have had to endure a month or 5 weeks of the Ryan Day chatter, right? Like the pressure would have only continued to mount. Now, though, obviously, it doesn't change the fact that they lost to Michigan. Yeah. It's not the conversation anymore. They can talk about the game during the offseason. They can talk about all of that once this tournament has been figured out. Like, he's put that away for now. And I think that they're going to beat Oregon, but we can save all of that.
Right. Also, I mean, that
preview talk for later.
Poor Oregon. Like, hey, you're undefeated. Great run. You got to beat this team again, or else you're out. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, we had to beat Texas twice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but we didn't have to beat Texas twice for all the marbles. We were going to be in this tournament one way or another. And again, it's not clear to me that it is to your benefit to miss that first week of games. Like, it's just like in terms of the health of your program, like, you're bringing in a whole bunch of money for your city. Everybody's super fucking excited, and you get to dole out a thrashing at home. Like, that's pretty sweet, actually. I don't see why you necessarily wouldn't have minded losing that game to Oregon, or to Texas rather, especially since your quarterback goes down anyway. Fuck it, who cares? Any other thoughts on this round of games and what we saw over the weekend? Of course, it was revealed late this afternoon, early evening, that Carson Beck has undergone Tommy John surgery or some sort of ligament surgery on his arm, and obviously will not be available, as was suspected, for the remainder of this season. This doesn't bother me, and it's not a surprise to me, just based on what I'd seen. I haven't. It's not like the Georgia offense has been firing on all cylinders, and now we lose the guy who was making this team win. This team was not winning or losing because of Carson Beck, and it won't win or lose because of Gunnar Stockton. It will win or lose on the basis of the defense and the running game.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see how the Notre Dame defense plays against Gunnar. I mean, we just didn't get enough look. The last game was just like a half of a game.
Nobody did. It's very exciting.
I do wonder, though, like, what's next for Carson Beck? I mean, he technically does have another year of eligibility. Like, his draft stock has plummeted.
No one knows.
Like, he's coming off this injury. Is he, like, he hasn't made any announcement as far as declaring yet, right?
No, he just got done with surgery.
Okay. So he has some time. But, like, I wonder if he is contemplating coming back, maybe.
He might transfer.
Transfer or do something. Transfer. I don't know. I guess it all depends on how this Gunnar thing works. If he just eats shit, if he pulls like that SMU quarterback kid, like a bunch of taints, then that's.
I don't imagine that Gunnar's going to look great. I imagine that he will look serviceable, and if we win, it will be because our defense was awesome and our running game was awesome. I don't think that Gunner is going to have the sort of run where Carson's like, oh, I guess I got to transfer in the spring window then. I think the starting job is likely, based on the Georgia quarterback room, likely his if he decided to come back again next season. It would feel weird.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset thing more than it is anything else. Like, can he be the big man on campus who was supposed to have graduated already and gone away?
Twice.
Right. Like, can you still be that guy? Can you command?
That's why they're saying he'll probably transfer.
Yeah, I mean,
it
it's
makes
the sort
most
of thing,
sense.
like psychologically almost, it makes the most sense for him to go somewhere else and try to make it work somewhere else. But strictly by the X's and O's, why would I want Carson Beck to go anywhere? I think he's an awesome quarterback. I want him back on this team if he's going to be playing college football next season.
He should, if he come back with a Honda Accord. Like, get rid of his fancy car.
Right. Lose the Lambo. Maybe
he already did, I think.
Maybe get a frumpier, dumpier girlfriend. No, she doesn't have to be ugly, but she doesn't need to be fucking Instagram famous either.
That's right.
That's the only women that these guys know are the Instagram famous people.
That approach did not work, obviously, right? I mean, it's just a bad omen. Just change it up,
Yeah. All right. Anything else on this weekend's games, Abe?
No, I wish that we had at least one good game, but what are you going to do? These things happen. Hopefully the next round, I'm almost assured that we'll have 2 good games next go-around. We're not going to have all 4 bad games.
I think you're right. We will have 2 good games next time around. They won't both be the ones that are coin flips at this point.
Yeah, the obvious ones. Yeah, you're right.
Right. One of those 2 will be good. Again, bad on me, but I think Georgia handles Notre Dame without too much drama. All right, let's move to the CIB Pick'em game recap. Fucking bloodbath on the CIB.
I think Lori did okay, didn't she?
Lori did okay, but only by picking favorites. So it's not like she's running away with this thing at this point. It's early yet in the CIB college football Pick'em contest playoff edition. I lost all 4 of my playoff picks. I got all 4 games wrong and then was saved. I got 5 points by selecting UNLV as my 5th game. Abe, you only got the Notre Dame outcome correct.
Thank God.
It on the other ones, and then also the Bills, you had -2 touchdowns. They had to scramble to get a win against the lowly Patriots.
Of course, like the Bills are running hot, and I'm like, yes, I think highly of this team, and then they eat shit, and they barely eke out a win. I don't know how that happens, but I thought I was going great. Like, it was the Friday night game, 1-0. I'm like, I'm going to sweep.
You were already spending that CIB Pick'em money.
I was like, this weekend is going to go perfect for me, and then nope.
Lori had Notre Dame, Penn State, and Texas outright, so she gets 6 points for those 3 games. And then Florida minus a big pile of points for 11 points overall. Cousin Steve comes in with 10 points, so our current standings are 11 for Lori, 10 for Cousin Steve, and Abe and I both occupying the caboose.
Oh, double caboose.
At 5 points
like you
each.
do.
Good news on the live bets, the games front. Abe, you went 2-0 in your live bets last week, which puts you 5 games over 500 at 21-16. And though we forgot to do it at the top of the show, now is the time to live bet the Monday Night Football action. We have the Saints at the Packers on Monday Night Football. This game is just 4 minutes gone. So Abe, knowing that Spencer Rattler is getting the start tonight for the Nolans Aints, and this is a home game for the Packers in the cold and possibly some snow. Who you got?
Oh, come on. This is easy Packers. Don't have to think about it.
It's not even fucking fair. This is ridiculous. This is bad scheduling by the NFL people. If they had known that you were going to be live betting the games all season long, surely they would not have given us such a gimme here at the end.
You know, now that I'm a few games above 500, I'm starting to feel a great distance. Like, I can no longer empathize with the under 500 crowd. It reminds me of when I got the e-bike. You know, the regular bike pedaling. Like, I just can't relate to that anymore. I'm just in a different phase of life. And so I'm just saying. It's going to be 6 games.
It's a good run for you. I'll grant you that. You've been listening to Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports with Bob and Abe. Lori's here too, except she just ran away to check on her brownies. You can check us out at Substack, brainiron.substack.com for more from us. Also, our opening and closing themes were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from Mark. Abe, anything else in the world of sport catch your eye this weekend?
Yeah, there was a NBA game earlier over the weekend, I believe. It was between the Knicks and the Pelicans. It's not important who. I've never seen this. I don't know if I should call them towel boys. They look like adults, so like towel men. The towel people responsible for cleaning the court whenever like a player falls down with all the sweat and whatnot. They received a technical, which I've never seen before. And the reason for that, you know how in college football, I think they do this in the NFL sometimes too, where a player will fake an injury to stall for time, to allow for substitutions or to do something, right? Sometimes in college football, a player will pretend to be injured. In the NBA, this is a first. Somebody from the Pelicans bench prompted the towel boy to get in there to stall because they wanted to review an out-of-bounds possession situation. And the referee caught on to what they were doing and gave the towel boy a technical and awarded the Knicks a free throw, which, again, I've never seen before. I don't know how...
So the referee is permitted to tee up anybody in attendance?
Yes. Apparently, you can tee up anybody. You can kick up. You can eject somebody for whatever. Like if somebody's like... Because I think there was a player that was... Or a fan that was mouthing off to an NBA player, and they got kicked out for that. But I've never seen a...
So did they get a double technical? Or
no, but... so that was like an ejection situation. But in this case, the Pelicans team... They were given a technical. And so the whole time I thought like in tennis, the people that are fielding the balls are neutrals, right? They have no side. And I thought towel boys had the same position. I thought they were neutrals. I didn't know that they were.
Well, now they're going to have to be like, we will have to, it will be enforced neutrality. We're going to have to bring in an outside group to do the sweat mop up.
They're not affiliated like the neurologists that they have for concussions.
They're going to be fucking unionized. It's going to be a goddamn disaster. This is the beginning of the end of the modern NBA.
That's right. The ref should just let it slide.
Well, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, as they say. Apparently, that extends also to the towel boys. I just saw this at ESPN. NCAA Division I Board of Directors on Monday approved a blanket waiver granting an additional year of eligibility to former JuCo transfers in similar positions to Vandy quarterback Diego Pavia, opening the door for a wave of college athletes across all sports to spend one more year in college athletics.
So, okay, interesting.
So they're saying for next season, because Pavia has this exemption, like he's going to, that judge put a hold on Pavia being dispermitted from playing, they're going to go ahead and give a blanket waiver to everyone in Pavia's position for the coming season. So if you've been a JuCo transfer who had used up all of your credits, according to the NCAA, you could come back for one more season across all sorts of sports.
I wonder if this is going to create a glut of players.
The waiver does not extend to all JuCo athletes, only those who would have completed their NCAA eligibility this year. So, bad news, as it turns out, Georgia great Stetson Bennett cannot come back next season and play one more year for the Bulldogs, which is too bad. Interesting. All right, so Diego Pavia moving mountains, making changes here, at least temporarily. Lori, anything else in the world of sport? You're still on Twitter. Anything good happen that you'd like to tell the world about?
Saturday was fucking hilarious. Everybody was so mad all day long. I don't know how anyone can complain when they could just look at Twitter and see the people complaining. No, everyone should go read that Seth Emerson piece in The Athletic about Gunnar Stockton.
All right, I will make sure there's a link to that in the show note. On that same sort of note, though, keep in mind, this playoff was not designed to give us a whole bunch of really awesome games at the start. This playoff was designed to get people to shut the fuck up about the 12 teams that could have or should have had a chance if there was a just and correct world, getting an opportunity to do so, and also for television ratings, right? That's all this was about. This was about getting people to shut the fuck up, stop your complaining about how we don't settle it on the field, giving those teams that in all likelihood suck ass a quote-unquote chance at the ring, even though they don't have a realistic chance at the ring, and also to make a lot of money for ESPN and the television networks and the schools and the NCAA, and that has worked to this point. Also, this first round of the playoffs has, to me, definitively proven that calls for expansion are fucking bonkers. Please don't. 12 teams is fine.
Right.
We don't need to go to 14. We certainly don't need to go to 16. 12 teams is just fine. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight then, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
First time Bob took the kids down to Georgia from here for the Christmas thing he used to go to. You might have seen him in that trip. Who knows?
Okay.
Julia came over, and it was Christmas time, and she came over to like wrap presents and hang out with me while I was alone with no kids for the weekend. And that week, she sent me like, here's something we can watch while I come over, and it was Making a Murderer.
Ah.
And we watched the entire 10 episodes in one day. And while we did that, we made these brownies. And I don't know if she found the recipe. I don't remember where it came from, but it was like, she probably found it and was like, hey, we should make these. And we tweaked the recipe in such a way that makes it so much better than I mean, I've never made it the way the recipe calls for, but I make it in a smaller, it's supposed to be cream cheese swirl brownies, where you make the brownie part and then you make the cream cheese part and then you swirl it together.
Okay.
But we instead put mini chocolate chips in the cream cheese part and did not swirl it. So it's like a layer.
Okay.
And we also cooked it in a smaller pan. And it is so good. They are so good. And I so strongly associated them with Making a Murderer and that being a Christmas time thing that they're linked in my head. It's a Christmas thing. So
that's interesting. So you guys just decided, like, we're never going to bother with the way that it's written. We're going to change it on the. So you never went back and compared it, like how?
Nope.
You're fine with the way it is.
There's no way I would. No. Why would I spend time and like use good ingredients to make a inferior version of something?
Are you able to send feedback to the people who made this recipe? Like, hey, got some notes?
I mean, I'm sure I'm able to. It's the internet, but I don't care.
Hey.
What you want to do is you want to get on all recipes and find that most popular brownie recipe. See that it has 1,500 comments beneath it. And then say, you know what?
Something.
You know what everybody else needs to hear is my 2 cents about how to tweak this recipe so it's just right.
Yeah, but who knows? Somebody's sorting by new and they see it and their life is better for it. I mean, who knows?
Sorting by new is like somebody's super sad memoirs in 20 years.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.